the expression we use a lot is it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility.
One thing that we're really excited about is we are looking at working with a global sporting team.
What are some things that are out there right now that you think maybe people wouldn't know about when it comes to AI?
Run 24 hours a day in the background, targeting the infrastructure and computer systems of organizations.
Is there a specific thing that leaders can do on a day-to-day basis to be on the forefront of AI?
This is the first of its kind and requires smarts. We've got to have the right people on board, got to have the right tools.
If I was to press you for an opinion, what do you think AI should be able to do, like for us as human beings?
You've got to be connected to your people, know what they're up to.
What are some of the ethical considerations for companies that are kind of embracing AI, especially at the leadership level? Welcome to another episode of Disrupt Leaders. Today, we've got an absolute special one for you today. We've got a leader, a CEO in the AI industry, Theodore Panagacos, today joining us, and he's got a wealth of experience. He's currently CEO of Kodora AI. Apart from that as well, he's written literally a book on business process management. So for those of you looking to understand management, understand leadership, we've got an absolute special one for you today. Bill, before I throw to our special guest, what are you excited to talk about?
I'm someone that uses AI a fair bit in the workplace. I was definitely one of the early adopters in with my previous organization where I used to work when it came to AI. And I feel I'm just really excited to work with someone, spend some time with someone who's genuinely a bit of an expert in that field and just learn more about it and how it can help future leaders, how it can help me in my role, I think. So Theodore, I guess kind of over to you. I'd love just for our listeners, for those that don't know who you are, just a brief description of your journey, I guess.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Bill. And, Julian, thanks to both of you actually for having me on board today. I'm really excited, to talk about everything AI and everything leadership, of course. Look, a little bit about me. So I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Kodora AI. We're a pure play artificial intelligence company based here in Australia. So what that means is effectively we do everything that's AI related end to end. So your traditional strategy consulting type services, all the way through to data analytics, even cybersecurity for AI as well, privacy, ethical compliance. And then last but not least, we've actually got a team that actually delivers and builds AI solutions for our customers. So we're largely focused at the enterprise level, large organizations that you're probably familiar with and maybe you even interact with day to day. I guess that the reason for building Codora, this AI business, is because we fundamentally saw that there was a big gap in the market for these type of services. As of today, I still think we could be the only dedicated pure play sovereign AI company in this country, which is actually a very exciting thing. And in 2025 and beyond, we're looking at growing and expanding based on market demand, of course. And then prior to that, look, spent multiple years, probably too many to remember, in consulting, management consulting, worked across multiple geographies in the United States, Southeast Asia, and basically working with CEOs and CIOs and other senior leaders to help solve very complex business challenges, whether using IT maybe as a solution or even traditional business strategy type consulting services as well. So I've been very, very fortunate in my career. And to your point earlier, I did write a book on business process management as well. And I guess looking back on it, that book was written quite a few years ago now. That sort of has been a little bit of a foundation or a groundwork piece for where my career has subsequently landed in AI, because AI is all about optimizing and improving processes fundamentally. So that's a little bit about me.
No, great. I think we're extremely honored to have the wealth of experience on board today for sure. So I think we're the ones who are blessed to have you. And it's funny because you're talking about CEOs and we're book nerds. I've got the Diary of CEO book behind it. So I'm thinking my next purchase is definitely going to be your book. I was looking at it over the last couple of days, and I was talking to Bill. I was like, we need to get onto it and do a bit of a review. We do reviews of different kind of leadership books and management strategy books as well. So definitely on the list to get in there. Maybe we'll do an episode on that. So look forward to that. We might look into that a little bit. So I think getting into that, you spoke about before around the fact that before this as well, you've been dealing with a high level, that C-suite leadership level, which is great to see as well. Well, obviously, our podcast is very much geared to those kind of frontline leaders and those people that are kind of getting into leadership and starting off with. What do you think for yourself, I guess when you started your leadership journey, what are the things that helped you succeed, whether that be your characteristics or skills?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question. I agree. And there is no there's no one thing, specifically. It's a question that requires a multifaceted answer. If I could be honest, I guess from a very early age, I was sort of taught or encouraged to always see if I could stay in sight of senior leaders and CEOs and CIOs and work with them in some capacity, even at a very junior level.
Okay.
And that may be even writing reports for them or doing work for them or particular isolated specialist projects for them. And by doing that, I was able to learn some of the key characteristics, to your point, that actually make them, a great leader or even a senior leader. So I was able to learn, traits in terms of, great time management skills, what it was like to lead others, even a persona type traits in terms of public speaking, all these fundamental skills which are critical if someone wants to become a senior leader of an organization. And then over time, I refined and I guess fine-tuned my own, leadership style, in addition to reading a lot about what makes a really good leader and likewise what makes a really bad leader. And through the course of my career, actually, it was quite fortunate, good or bad, I guess, to work with both. I worked with some really amazing leaders. And I guess everyone has, to be honest. That's probably a fair comment. I worked with some amazing leaders who, I would jump off the cliff for, quite frankly, really encouraging, really inspiring, and made me want to get out of bed in the morning to run to work and go work with these people. But also likewise too, I work with leaders who facilitated and nurtured a very toxic environment. And so I learned the bad things in terms of, what not to do on the other side. And so I carried that, with me. In terms of specific traits, I sort of narrowed it down to just a couple of key things, over the years. I think good leaders, in terms of from what I've personally seen, is that they're decisive. They can make a decision. They know that they don't need to get the decision 100% right 100% of the time. But even if they get it 80% of the right, that's still really good. But ultimately, they make a decision. The second one is that they're accountable. Good leaders are accountable for their actions. They take the blame if things go bad, and likewise too. They hold account for themselves personally and professionally to make sure that the work they're doing is a success. Also, responsible as well, and last but not least, they're engaged. So what that means is they're engaged with people at all levels of the organisation. So if you're wanting to become, I would say, a senior leader eventually, and you're say middle management, to your point, Julian, I think you mentioned that before. It's good to engage with people at all levels of the organisation, through internal networking. And work with people across the business, so that they know you know who they are, and you've got opportunity to, I guess, put yourself in a position where you can be eventually appointed to a senior leader role.
Yeah, I love the last bit you said there around engaging all levels. I don't think you see that as often, right, Bill?
100%. Yeah. I think it's good because I'm sitting here, like we asked you the question values, right? And I know that Jules and I have like our values, what we see as leaders. And obviously we're, like you said, middle management leaders, but asking that question and then hearing someone who's like, much more senior and be like, I wonder if their values align with ours. And if you're going to say something like, oh man, maybe I'm wrong. And then almost everything you said falls in very much in line with what me and Jules talk about all the time. I think accountability is one of the ones, like you talk about good leaders, bad leaders. For me, a lot of the time, that's the one that you can usually tell if a leader's a good leader or a bad leader just by how accountable they are. Like the expression we use a lot is it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. I think it's something that you can see that a lot. And it's always interesting when you see, like when you're coming up and you're going through your journey, as you mentioned, you had a lot of good leaders and bad leaders. It's interesting how much you learn from those bad leaders. Like you really learn a blueprint of like what to do and what not to do, right? So
spot on. Look, I'll give you a great example. Sorry, Julian, but great example. In a former life, I worked with a bad leader who I just never saw from day to day. They were working remotely in another geographic location. They probably wouldn't speak to me for 2-3 months at a time. They had no idea what I was doing, no idea what I was up to. And so when it came to my performance review, they'd just go on third parties, sources, or just plucking random things out of thin air. Whereas with my team, I was adamant. I had to sit down once a month, cup of coffee, outside of the office domain. How are you going? Are you okay? Mentally, which is really important. Are you enjoying your role? And how's your personal development going? And that speaks to the engagement part. Being engaged with people. It doesn't matter whether you're a junior leader or even someone senior. You've got to be connected to your people, know what they're up to, and help them achieve what they need to do in their role.
Love it.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you're definitely echoing a lot of the things we've spoken about in the podcast before, which is great to hear. And I think it really draws from we've told a line from Simon Sinek, which is you
Oh,
be
yes.
the leader you wish you had. And I
Mm.
think a lot of what you're saying is pretty much echoing that, right? Like I think if you've not
Mm.
experienced something before and you feel like, oh, I wish I had access to this, or I wish my leader did this with me, then that's your opportunity to do that with your people. And I think that's a
Yes.
great message to kind of tell all leaders across the board.
Yeah, and I think that goes through
Yeah.
to like the little things as well as the big things, right? Like even just super small things, like if someone was unwell the day before, just shooting a message, just being like, "You okay? How you feeling?" Like
Mm.
it's literally as small as that. I think is the things that like really make the difference on that level. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um.
Yeah, I agree.
So, second question for you, it's probably steering us a little bit more towards what your specialties. I'd love to know, what are you working on right now that you're exciting? What's exciting you right now? What's a project that you guys are involved in that you think like this is something that I'm really passionate around?
Yeah, look, we've been, there's probably too many to mention. We have been working on quite a few projects throughout, particularly the last 6 months, which I can say, are, sort of like
Mhm.
kind of landmark projects, both for our company and maybe even for, the industry as a whole. One thing that we're really excited about is we are looking at working with a global sporting team. I'm not going to say which one, and I'm not going to say in which sporting environment it is or which sporting
Okay.
industry rather, but we are looking at using AI to optimize the performance of that sporting team. So
Interesting.
to help them gain competitive advantage on the sporting field so that they can beat other teams. Now that is really exciting. And now there aren't too many AI
Yes.
companies in the world as of today that are actually doing this. Certainly there's been
Mhm.
some news and some media come out of the United States and Europe around some experimentation in this field, but we're actually going to be doing it for real. So if you can think about the performance of athletes and maybe the equipment that they use, the dynamics of the field that they're playing in, the terrain, even things like weather as well. We'll be analysing all
Mm.
that data to help that particular team achieve or win in their respective
Mm.
field. And so that is probably the most exciting. And quite frankly, a little bit of a sports fan personally. So for me, it doesn't get
Same.
much better than that. Not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, that's what's exciting me, and certainly in the near future.
Oh, no. That is definitely my cup of tea as well, both
Yeah.
the analytics part of sports and the sports parts itself. Because,
Yeah.
it's funny you say that. I'd have never even considered it, I don't think, if you hadn't mentioned it. But when you think about like Moneyball is a thing in
Mm.
baseball, right? Like
Mm.
literally like the data and analytics and analyzing it helps what was the team? The A's actually go on and win stuff.
Oakland A's, yeah.
Mm.
And yeah, and like it's something that's happened for years. Like even I remember in the 90s, like Manchester United had that one fan, if you remember this, where they realized that they lost percentage when they were a certain color of their kit was significantly
Yep.
higher, and so they changed kit. Like even just small things like that. So
Yeah.
I could imagine that like using AI in a field to analyze all that data would be massive. So that is super exciting, and I'm now personally interested in seeing where that goes because I'm also a
And
massive sports fan.
yeah, and I think like the other experience that Bill and I have is we're coaching. So like, coaching is a big part of our leadership routine, and we kind of marginal
Mm.
gain stuff. And
Mm.
you're probably already aware of
Mm.
this now that you got into this environment, which is I think it's the coach, the British cycling coach, I think Brailsford, he did that kind
Yeah.
of 1% improvements. How do they sleep? What do they eat? The tire pressure, all that kind of those little things, those marginal gains that allow them to dominate cycling for a long time.
Mhm.
Geez, that's a very interesting project, and I'm
Yeah.
really excited to see that. I'm interested to see who it is first of all. Hopefully it's not hopefully it's not against one of our teams, but
No.
but in general, I'm very that's a really exciting project. When you're approaching those ones which sound like a new frontier, what are
Mm.
your kind of thought processes as a CEO?
Yeah, look, we're a bit nervous, to be honest,
Yeah.
nervous, because again, this is the first of its kind. It requires, smarts. We've got to have the right people on board, got to have the right tools, equipment. Also, our partner, this sporting team, we need to make sure that they've got the data available. So,
Yeah.
to that end, we'll take a little bit of maybe like a risk adverse approach. We'll proceed with caution, start off with small data sets, and then we'll move into bigger things where we can add a little bit of innovation and do some exploratory stuff, which is really cool. I guess the fundamental is, what makes a project like this successful is ultimately if the team actually wins and is able to beat out the competition, right? So that is our measure of success, and how we get there, I think, is going to be a bumpy road, to be honest.
Mm.
Again, there's a lot of testing required and variables at play. So I am confident we'll have a great outcome, but it just depends on how long that's going to take based on, again, the data that's available to us.
Yeah, I think when you're saying it's a bumpy road, for me, what comes into mind is like we've spoken about change management before, and
Mm.
wow, is that going to be a change management piece for the players involved, and I think the coaching unit as well, because
Mm.
I think in a lot of sports, especially sports that are quite entrenched in like culture,
Mm.
the people have thought about a certain thing a certain way. Like, I'm a big cricket fan, I'm Sri Lankan from birth, so cricket's
Mm.
big for me. And so, I mean, if you've got to teach those swing bowlers how to swing the ball through AI, I think they'll probably look at you very quizzically. So I
Yes.
think a part of your challenge, and correct me if I'm wrong, would be just that change management piece from the beginning. Like, how do we add credibility to things we say, and get to change some of these traditional ways of operating in that sport to now a new age? Will be really
Yeah.
interesting as well, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And
Um,
look, every sporting code around the world is open for change. To your point, Julian, AI
mm.
can be applied to any sporting code, whether it's horse racing, gymnastics in the Olympic Games, tennis, even track and field and athletics. Wherever there's data, or whether there's people or equipment, we can use AI to optimize every stage of a race or potentially even an outcome. So it's a choice as to whether or not the sporting codes embrace it. I think it'll be not forced upon them, but they'll sort of be, encouraged to adopt and embrace AI, because again, some teams will choose to use it to be competitive. And then there's questions around, well, if one team's got AI and using AI and is winning games, what happens to the other teams that aren't? Well, how do we level the playing field again? So
You've read my
some
mind
questions
there.
to consider, but it will happen.
Yeah, you read
I
my
mean,
mind
that's
there. I was
literally
literally going to ask that. Yeah, go, Bill.
I mean, it's kind of what happened with Moneyball, right? Like that's literally
Yeah.
the plot of that. Like they had this data, they were using the data, and the teams didn't like it, and then one team started winning, and then that's everywhere. And I think it'll be interesting to see that journey kind of roll out on probably a grander scale, because I imagine if you get one sports team start winning, I imagine it won't just be that sport that wants to do that, right? Like it would literally just be like the downward break, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of leads
Yeah.
to a bit of a question that Jules and I were having a bit of a debate on Friday about AI and where it is at the moment. And do you think that we're past the point where it's still only early adopters using AI in general, or do you think it's still very much like in its infancy in that stage? Like where on its like a life scale do you think it is? You'd probably be a little bit closer to the ground than this than us, so I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, look, it depends who you ask, but I would say that we are actually in a very mature state of AI at the moment. And, to your point around adoption and maturity levels and things like that, whether it's in its infancy or how sophisticated we are with the technology, I just look at who's using it. And some organizations in Australia have really embraced AI and are now seeing some tangible outcomes, particularly commercial value outcomes and benefits back to their organization. On the flip side, there are other organizations that are yet to embrace or adopt AI and sort of thinking, okay, well, maybe we should look into it eventually, but let's see what other organizations are doing first. I will say this is that as of today, as we're recording this podcast, the level of sophistication of AI as it stands today is actually quite high. And we can actually solve most problems with AI now. Now, the tools may be a little bit difficult to get to. They may require high consumption compute and lots of data, but they're certainly there and they are available. And we can use AI today to achieve most business problems. And even we talked about the sporting context as well. The AI tools and the technologies out there to achieve that as of today, it really just comes down to whether individuals and even corporations choose to adopt it. I think that's probably the more important question.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think it's interesting to say that. I do believe that. Yeah, I mean, there's probably an AI function out there for every business opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely, if you do your research, there's like so many out there. Taking that into consideration, right? I think the natural fear points a lot of people have, even like when Bill and I talked to their colleagues and stuff like that around AI, is that they're fearful that kind of there's probably like a misconception out there in the marketplace around, people are going to lose their jobs and it's going to really change it. I was listening to a recent episode of the Kodora CEO where you were talking to the founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, and he was talking about the fact that when the printing press was brought out, a lot of people who manually used to write books lost all their jobs, and everyone was concerned that it would change the world in a drastic way, and it did, but it also created new opportunities, right? So, from your perspective, what do you think are the misconceptions of AI right now? You're seeing in the media, like media is obviously hyping a lot of that fear factor quite a bit at the moment.
Yep.
But what are you seeing are the kind of
right?
misconceptions, and what do you think is the truth around AI in terms of jobs and job security, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure. Look, there's a lot of misconceptions that are out there. The first one is that AI just doesn't work. AI is too expensive and doesn't really achieve the outcomes that's intended. We both know that those misconceptions are completely false. The third big one, clearly is, to your point, is it going to be taking people's jobs? Well, the answer is no, at least not in our immediate lifetime, within the next 3 to 5 years. It'll certainly make an impact, but what I mean by that is that the tools available in the AI space will probably enable, in fact, they are set up to enable employees to do more, not replace employees. So AI is essentially, just another tool, another means to help a worker do what they do, day to day, right? So there'd be business as usual activities. So yes, we've had discussions with some companies. This very discussion around, can we replace contact centers and finance teams and legal teams just by using AI? Well, potentially you could, but that then has other effects. For example, there's still an expectation that customers want to deal with a human being, at the end of the day, right? So, and I don't think we're at a place where the AI. We talked about AI sophistication earlier. I don't think we're at a place where it's just so good that it can replace a human worker in its entirety. That's still miles away. So, look, it's an ever evolving question. I don't think we've landed on an answer yet. Will it entirely replace people? I think in the immediate future it won't. But it's just something certainly we have to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I think from my perspective, it's always very much felt like as Jules was saying, like it probably will, but I don't think it replacing people will mean there'll be no jobs. I think it'll just change what jobs look like, much in the same way that computers changed in the way that work looks like. Like we still have people that work in call centers, things like that. So I think it's I don't know. It's very interesting. I think there's just a lot of like fear mongering is what it feels like to me in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. It is very much fear mongering. I mean, we see it day to day. I mean, I looked at my LinkedIn reels, the posts recently, and every second or third post is an AI hate post. And sometimes these are actually authored by parents, AI experts. Like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be supporting and nurturing and portraying the industry in a positive light. Yet, you're shooting us down. And look, to my point earlier, these claims are quite unfounded. If anything, to your point, Julian, around creating new opportunities, I personally believe that individuals, staff will be reskilled to embrace AI, learn how to use tools, and be a little bit more creative in terms of how they do their day-to-day work. I think that's where some great benefits lie.
I mean, that literally has already started happening, I think, in some organizations. Like we, in our organization, they recently just released our own version of an AI that's like in-house. And there's like a full training module on how to use it and how to get the best out of it. And I still don't think it's there yet. Like I've used it a couple of times and it's definitely like, it's not as good as even like ChatGPT, for example, but it's there and it works. And I think it's already starting to come through. And I think if organizations really want to succeed moving forward, me personally, I think they're going to have to start doing more of that. I think they're going to have to lean into it. It's either you lean into it or you get left behind, is my opinion.
Well, we've talked about the sporting context before. If you give a sporting team AI tools, well, they're going to, potentially win their respective championships, whatever the case may be. It's like the same in the business context. If an organization chooses to use AI, they're more likely to dominate the respective market segment, more likely to generate revenue growth, and more likely to become more competitive and offer better services and products to the market, as opposed to those organizations that choose not to embrace AI. So
that's it. Adapt or get left behind, right?
Very much so. Yeah.
It's definitely a bit of a Kodak moment, right? Like when like I think cameras getting digitized, like Kodak said, nah, we're going to invest more in film and all that kind of stuff, and everyone else just left the Mac in the dust. And so I think you're correct. You can. I think it's going to be really visible in the next 5 or 10 years. The companies that are really embrace digitization and AI more than the others, and it's just the cost of operating is going to be much lower for those people as well. I think overall, right? Like if you're reducing and being more efficient, it's easier to operate and be profitable as well. Cool. I guess going on to that as well, and a little bit down the same pathway is what are for in your mind, what are some of the ethical considerations for companies that are kind of embracing AI, especially at the leadership level?
Yeah, look, there's quite a few in this space. Like for example, building in unknowingly AI bias into AI models,
Mm,
building models that can discriminate against individuals based on certain characteristics, whether it's race or disability or something like that.
Interesting.
mm,
Um, allowing AI models to go rogue and not be contained, meaning that an AI model, unless it's tested first and tested properly, could reveal, say, personal data, maybe medical data, or even personal identifiable data, maybe
mm,
person's date of birth or a email address, or even where they live, a residential address, out
mm,
in the open to the public, unknowingly. These are some
mm,
of the potential, risks, and to your point, the ethical considerations that we talk about at length, in the industry. I
mm,
will say this: this particular topic around AI ethics um, and making sure we're using AI in a safe and ethical manner. It's been talked about now for the last 18 months. And what I have seen is that the vendors that are producing these AI platforms and systems, they've done a great job of containing all that now. So if you're using
okay.
Microsoft or H2O, which is another large AI organization, or even Amazon, they build these sort of considerations automatically into the environments
Right.
within their own cloud software, which is really cool. So preventing risk and mitigating risk in AI models has now been, I guess, improved, and we've come a long way.
Mm,
Another consideration when we talk about ethics is also in the space of compliance. I've mentioned before about AI models revealing sensitive personal data. We've got discussions underway at the moment at federal government level in Parliament as we speak around privacy.
mm,
And should the Privacy Act be extended, or should we see regulation in the AI space in
mm,
2025 and beyond? So there's a lot of great discussion that's being had, and I guess the vendors have been great. The technology vendors have been great in this space to really improve the way AI tools are brought to market again in a safe and ethical manner.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Something interesting, actually, just off what you mentioned there. Obviously, talking about like privacy acts and stuff like that potentially have to be changed. I'm going on off a bit of a tangent here. I'll be honest. Like I do tend to do that a little, but I'd love it to ask you like how else you think that the world is going to have to adapt to AI. And the reason I ask is I was literally watching a TikTok the other day, and it was someone like doing an interview, and what they'd done is they'd got their phone set up with ChatGPT, and so they were getting asked the question, and then holding the button down, and then ChatGPT was hearing the question and then spitting him out an answer, and they were using that answer. And obviously there was also considerations of universities, people using AI to write their essays and stuff like that. And I think the world has to adapt, not necessarily because that people to stop people from cheating, but like people are going to have access to those resources
Mm.
now, right? Like, you're never going to need to write an essay on your own again in theory. So how else do you think the world's going to have to adapt? Like, what other changes do you think that people maybe haven't foreseen when it comes to AI that they probably should start to look at?
Yeah, look, that example that you just mentioned with respect to the universities and people writing their exams using ChatGPT, give you that's a great example of where universities and schools have now adapted, because we're now on the equal playing field. Everyone's got
Mm,
access to ChatGPT. And so
mm,
what the universities and schools have done have gone around the other way, and they've said, well, you can now access ChatGPT, but we're now going to force you to write out your exam essays. We're now going to force you to write out, so you have to still think, creatively. And I guess that's a great
Mm,
example of how, the education system has adapted as a result of that. Look, it's pretty hard to look into a crystal ball with respect to
mm,
AI. Look, we sort of know where the industry is headed as a whole. There is an intersection between quantum robotics and AI that's clearly converging in the next couple of years.
mm,
In terms of adaptation, the answer is I actually don't know. I don't know
mm,
how individuals and industries need to adapt to this one. It's almost like on a month-to-month basis. And the reason being is because AI is changing on a month-to-month basis. We're seeing
mm,
new tools released to the market almost on a daily, weekly basis. New models, even the Google Gemini model was just released, last
mm,
week or the week before. That's completely new
mm,
and has a whole degree of intelligence and thinking that sits behind it. So it's very hard to predict how we can, foresee some of these tangible changes that may affect us as individuals
mm,
and us as workers as well. I guess if we're still staying within the guardrails of what AI should and should not do, then I think we'll be reasonably safe. It's just, to your point, how do we embrace it in a way where humans can still thrive, still think innovatively, and still be creative? I think that's where it's at.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be an interesting one to watch it kind of develop because, I think back to even when I was at school, right? It was like, oh, you're never going to have a calculator on you all the time. And now I've got like a literal supercomputer on me all the time. And I think
yes,
it's the same is probably going to be true of AI. Like, it's going to be there. It's going to be present. And it's going to be really interesting watching just the smaller things you don't think about and how they're going to have to adapt, I guess. Sorry, Jules, I did cut you off there, I think.
No, all good. That's
I was going to say, look, so, like another great example is that we're talking about the use of electricity consumption in AI data centers.
Yeah.
Like if we want to use more AI when it needs more compute power, more cooling costs to cool these AI chips that are driving these highly sophisticated computations. Well, if we're going to use a lot of electricity, well, that's going to put a constraint on the environment. So again, another great example of how we're adapting is that we're starting to see the rise of hydrogen-powered AI data centers, low cost, high cooling type services in this space. And even here in Australia, we're talking about is there a potential where small nuclear facilities can power AI data centers again to not put a constraint on the environment. So we're always thinking through these challenges, and humans are very adaptive. That's by nature. So I'm sure if there is a challenge, we'll overcome it pretty quickly.
Yeah. One thing you said before around what AI should and shouldn't do on those guardrails. I guess if I was to press you for an opinion around, what do you think AI should be able to do, like for us as human beings? And then, I do have any examples around things that you don't think it should do or should be constrained to, I guess.
Yeah, look, I think AI should be able to help human beings in their day-to-day function. That's at a very, very high level and be an enabler to help the human race progress. Where I think it shouldn't, I think AI should not be used as a weapon, to harm people or even harm individuals, whether it be emotionally, physically, or otherwise. Certainly we talk about this in the defense realm, where we know that there are certain countries that are interested in weaponizing AI to harm others and gain the tactical advantage on the battlefield. That's a dangerous space that we could potentially be playing in. We're seeing the cybersecurity space where AI tools have been developed to a point where they can just run 24 hours a day in the background, targeting the infrastructure and computer systems of organizations, worldwide. Those autonomous agents, and they're very sophisticated too. So again, that's where AI brings harm to either an individual or even an organization. So they're the bad things, and we certainly maintain watch on it. And likewise on our side, we're looking at how organizations and individuals can protect themselves from that as well, plus being engaged at, say, the policy level. When we talk about things like national security, I mentioned just before, how do we work through use of AI in, say, defense and national security environments and try and work around the complexities of that?
Yeah. I mean, there are a whole bunch of movies around why AI with war stuff is not a good idea. So I think those countries are looking at, we just show them Terminator 1 and then we just call it a day. Should probably put that to bed. Segue again, kind of, I think. In regards to like tools and stuff like that, so this is a bit more of a low-level question. What are some things that are out there right now that you think maybe people wouldn't know about when it comes to AI that they could be using to like improve their day-to-day? And specifically, I guess, from a lens of leadership, like what's something that like, young leaders could do? Any thoughts, any suggestions, any ideas? I'd love to know.
Yeah, look, a little bit of a shameless plug. On our website, Kodora AI, we have a database of about 12,500 AI tools. So if you're looking for something to enhance your day-to-day productivity or even in your life just in generally, there is definitely a tool, I'm sure, that could solve the problem. So look, just some tangible basic things, like automating the development of emails is a great one that we use at work. Merging or extracting data out of Excel spreadsheets and putting them into, automatically into a PDF. Sending us email alerts, once a week. We can build tools that can tell our team, as an example. Again, we're just talking about some basic technical wins here. That can tell our team in terms of how a project is progressing and whether or not, we're behind or delayed or ahead on the project. Even transcribing podcasts and interviews, like the one here, we've got tools that are available now where we're just at a click of the button, completely transcribe the notes and even word for word the things that we're talking about in an instant and in seconds. And then you can take that and then forward it into another document if you so wish. There are tools that can even review YouTube videos and transcribe YouTube videos just again at the click of the button. These sort of things went around 12 months ago or even a couple of years ago, but they are today. And these are very, for some people, these may be just throwaway examples, but to others, this can solve hours of time, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
benefit
100%.
of the benefits of AI. In terms of how AI can be used in leadership, well, I'd say if you're a leader, the best thing to do is start embracing AI and learning about it. Go take a course, jump onto Udemy or Coursera, or even EDX, where there is a multitude of courses that specifically talk about AI for leadership, and actually just understand what, Julian, you mentioned, what it can and can't do, what it should and shouldn't do. Start thinking about how AI, or rather how you could potentially use AI in your own day-to-day work. And just by understanding how machine models work, large language models work, AI vision tools, cognitive search type tools as well, and even understanding the infrastructure that supports some of these tools, you're going to put yourself ahead, I think, in probably in terms of your peers, because quite frankly, it's still a new space and really not too many people know about the nuts and bolts of AI just yet. Again, this is a wide sweeping view, but it is new in its infancy, so why not learn about it now?
Yeah, it's the one thing you said before about note taking. I was talking to Bill actually yesterday. I was saying one of the things I used to use, I use once in a while is I use Kodora AI, which is like a transcribing app. It's been around for a while, a few years now, but essentially when I used to have coaching sessions, I used to put my phone down on the table, that transcribes for me. So I don't have to worry about that note taking. So I can just be one-on-one with my direct report, and I can have those real detailed conversations. And this is the job of like taking the notes. I mean, when I first started using it, it wasn't perfect, but now it's so good. Like it literally picks up even some of the inflections in people's voices and like some of the ums and ahs as well, which is great. But I can just upload that straight into, our coaching notes or whatever, or one-on-one notes, and that it's there. I don't have to worry about it. And that alone would save you, after every coaching session one-on-one, it'd save you 20, 30 minutes of writing notes sometimes, so it is a big save. And I think if you're not doing those things as a leader, you're going to be left behind, personally, is my opinion. And I know like Bill and I use quite a bit of AI for different things as well. But even like simple stuff like, if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, if you're not using some of the kind of AI designer functions to get you just, jazz up your presentation a little bit, I think you're kind of letting yourself down a little bit. There's so many out there that you can use, which is great. I'll definitely Googled a bit of the Kodora AI website stuff before as well. There's stuff that I didn't even realize was happening at the moment. So I'm definitely going to jump on a lot more over the next few months for sure.
Yeah. There's an AI tool, particularly on our Codora website, to solve almost any problem in any industry, whether it be health or even mental health. Taking notes, to your point, transcribing type tools as well, productivity tools with respect to merging PDFs and Word documents and things like that. All bases are covered. Now, they may not work amazingly well. Some are better than others, but that's the nature of, I guess, the industry. But they will improve over time, of course.
Yeah, I think like any early adopters, you kind of have to be used to not a bumpy road, as you were talking about before with the sports team, right? Because you if you expect to be smooth straight off the bat, then you probably have to wait 10 years, but then you're probably too late, so you're too late to the party. People have already, early adopters already taken that and run with it, and then you're playing catch up from day dot. So yeah, that's really interesting.
Very true.
Moving on, I guess a little bit again around that. I think you've kind of gone through that a little bit, but you've gone through what can help it. What can leaders do? We've heard different stories from different people around, spend 10 to 15 minutes a day learning about AI. You mentioned some courses before, which is really cool. I just noted those down as well, in terms of EDX around learning about AI. But is there a specific thing that leaders can do on a day-to-day basis, or maybe on a monthly basis, to be on the forefront of AI that you think, people aren't just doing at the moment?
Look, again, a bit of a shameless plug. I'd highly recommend, if you haven't done so, join our page on LinkedIn, the Codora page, because we're posting stuff about AI all the time. Subscribe to podcasts like this great one here. Read up about it on newsletters, attend industry forums as well. So we've got AI conferences in Australia. There is some great ones coming up in Singapore, the UAE, and of course in the United States later in 2025. These opportunities where you can network with like-minded people, learn a lot about AI, and again, what it can and can't do, and even learn about some of the use cases, case studies that they are employing in their own business context. And potentially you can apply those, in your own day-to-day work as well. I'd say reading books about AI, some great books that are out there at the moment, whether it be technical or even just about views in terms of where AI is headed in the near future. I've talked about quantum and robotics before. There's some great books that talk about where the intersection is between AI and quantum and robotics, and sort of, I guess, envision where the world could head, in addition to where your potential business that you're working in at the moment. These sort of things are all encompassing. The more you read, the more you network with people in the industry, I think you're going to improve your knowledge markedly, in addition to the courses we talked about earlier as well.
Nice.
If you, off the top of your head, any book recommended? Like, if I was going to go off the back of this, like we hang up today, I'm going to go and buy a book. What's the one that you're like, this is a great foundation, it's a good place to start? I'd love to know.
Yeah, look, I had a feeling that you're going to ask that. There is a couple of books. I would say a great place to start if you're an absolute newbie is actually just the foundation course, which is the Microsoft course. It's AI 900, and there's a couple of books that are out there. It is somewhat a little bit technical, but to be honest, if I was to say, right, well, here's an entry point, start there. It is generic enough and basic enough that most of your audience will be able to read it without any problems and quickly be immersed in everything AI. And you probably laugh at this one, but the Dummies Guide to Artificial Intelligence, the Dummies Guide to Machine Learning, they were both written a couple of years ago. But I can say that they are not Dummies Guides at all. They are really good introductory publications that go into the deep end, very quickly and find a whole raft of different use cases that I think will be applicable for most people that are listening in today. The other great book too, and I'll just finish on this one, is Satya Nadella's Heat Refresh. It's the CEO of Microsoft. He wrote a book a couple of years ago, maybe last year, or if not the year before, a bit of a biography about his life story at Microsoft. He talks a lot about AI and where AI is headed in the world in the near future. Fantastic book. Again, highly recommended.
Cheers, thanks for that. I've noted all those down, so I think that might go into Disrupt Leaders book club. I think, Bill, and then we'll kind of look through those.
To the West.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely why I asked the question.
Last one on that a little bit. I think we spoke about what you value yourself as a leader. Now, being a CEO, you're at times hiring leaders to your business, and what do you look for, I guess, in your leaders that you're hiring to Codora?
Yeah, look, quite a few things. A little bit of a loaded question, because it's like, how long's a piece of string? But I'll try and narrow it down to a few things. But certainly drive and determination. Look for people that are self-starters, entrepreneurial, have a great ability to explain very complex problems in a very clear, basic manner to people that don't come from a technical background. I'd say they really need to know their craft as well. Like, really need to know, AI. If you're going to work in an AI company, they need to know that. Have great consulting skills. So what that means is the ability to write and present clearly, as well as, of course, public speaking skills. The ability to lead people on a bit of a journey. In addition to teamwork, and teamwork means different things to different people, but just quite frankly, the ability to work with others and be open and honest and transparent, and build a sense of trust as well, and accountability. So we did talk about leadership traits, earlier on, in terms of what leadership traits I like to see in leaders, and certainly we try to try those myself. I also like to see those traits in the people that we hire into Codora, and that's the same traits that stuff at all levels. So whether it's someone senior or someone junior, honesty, trust, these basic values that anyone else would expect, quite frankly, we'd like to see in our employees as well.
Yeah, I want to pick on one last thing that you said there before. Like, I know I've been barraging you with questions all this time, so thank you so much. But One last question. I think what you said was make complex things simple, right? In a lot of ways. And what are your tips around that? Because, again, like that change management piece for us as leaders, sometimes we've got really complex things that happen strategically as a business, and we need to be able to dilute that, or really concentrate that, for our people and give them the need to knows. What are your tips as a CEO around doing that?
Yeah, look, I'd say it's putting yourself in the person's shoes that you're speaking to. If we're going in to deploy an AI tool for law and in the legal industry, as an example, we won't be talking about the code that sits behind an AI tool that can help lawyers achieve their job. We'll be speaking to a senior lawyer, legal counsel, chief legal officer, and saying, "Hey, guess what? With this tool, we can save you, 4 hours a week in productivity, in time." Right, so dumb it down. Sell the benefits. What are the tangible outcomes that are going to bring value to your immediate day-to-day work? The rest, the hardware and the software. If you want to ask questions about that, certainly we can do that. But look, that's just one example. I think you really need to sit the shoes of the other person, of course, and understand where they're coming from and what problem they're trying to solve. And once you understand that, then I think you can break it down and explain things in a very simple and constructive manner.
Love it. Yeah, great. Bill, do you have any further questions for Theodore?
I only have one last question, and it's a question I definitely should have asked at the start, but it came to mind as you were talking, just from listening to you. I just want to know what got you into AI. Like where, like obviously your journey, you started off working elsewhere. What was it made you go, this is something I'm interested in, this is something I want to pursue? And I thought this was a great question at the start, but I've asked it at the end.
Yeah, no, look, fair enough. Look, way back when I wrote this book, The Ultimate Guide to Business Process Management, AI was actually on the radar way back then. I think I wrote that the book was published around 2012, and there were companies that were starting to, there were companies that were already starting to look at this concept of autonomous agents and AI robots. And they spoke about that in terms of process optimization and automating processes in our day-to-day tasks, again, whether it's at home or in the workforce. And that actually quite intrigued me. And then since then, I've been sort of sitting on the periphery, watching the industry grow and evolve. Maybe about 6-7 years ago, there was news that Microsoft was investing in this project called GPT. No one had ever heard of GPT, and they came out with this model called GPT-1 and subsequently GPT-2. And I'm like, okay, that's actually pretty interesting. And then I think the key moment, Bill, was when I sat down for the first time and started interacting with GPT-3 in November of 2022, I think it was now, 2022. And upon seeing it, I realized, well, this is actually going to be a game changer, not just in the technology sector, not just in commercial industry, but for society as a whole worldwide. The tool was overwhelmingly convincing that this was going to change everything for us as in terms of humanity, going forward. And look, it already started to. And I thought, well, if we don't jump on this and bring to the market a company that can help organizations embrace this technology, solve complex business challenges with this technology, and navigate some of the hurdles with respect to ethics and compliance and regulatory control and all that sort of thing. We've got to be able to bring this company and help the market in this state. That's where me and a couple of my business partners, of course, decided to get into AI and haven't looked back since. It's been a great journey so far.
Right.
No worries. Thank you for answering.
Yeah.
I think
Bill,
that's all the questions. Do you have anything else you want to add, Theo, before I wrap it up? Anything you want to add?
No, it's been a great discussion. I'd like to come back again, because I'd say in 12 months' time we actually could start to be talking about robotics. We could start talking about quantum computing is we're looking at quantum computing at the moment. We're also looking at high performance data centers that could be driven by talking about hydrogen and nuclear as well. The industry is evolving and changing so quickly. In 12 months' time, we could be sitting here and talking about completely different topics than what we are today, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just an observation, but who knows? Maybe we'll put this on the radar for next year and then compare where we are today versus where we are in the future.
I think for both of us, we're definitely excited to see you in in the future again. hopefully you can help Bill and I sports team. Once the sports team does come out, I'm sure Bill would want you to help with you
My
go
team
for
need it.
West
West Brom, yeah.
West Brom,
We
West
desperately need
Brom,
it.
and I go for Arsenal. So if you ever
fantastic.
if you ever need help,
Yeah, fantastic.
All right.
Absolutely. It was great work with you guys. Look, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely love to be back again. And look, if any of your audience wants to reach out to me as well, you just drop me a line, hello@Kodora.ai.
Absolutely. And look, thank you to everyone out there for listening today. We really appreciate it. As always, if you did enjoy that one, do drop a like, drop a subscribe. It helps out the channel immensely. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Thank you.